Page 10.
I can get rid of my papers tonight.
I'm Shauna Weaver, I'm the Republican Commissioner. Nice to
Terry.
meet everybody.
Terry Beaniak, the Democratic Commissioner. Hi, everybody.
Alright. Never been to a workshop, so do you want me to start by saying anything?
Brief overview,
Yes, I'm sorry.
any highlights that you want to point out to us?
So I just wanted to make sure, did everybody receive the letter that I forwarded over to you guys? by
Yes,
chance?
yes.
Okay. I just had some questions in regards to the temporary employees, budgeted amount, and then two other specific amounts in regards to travel-related costs and the mile allocations. I kind of did a brief rundown of numbers that we've spent this year on our elections and trying to come up with a figure in regards to the new training that the state is giving out next year in regards to our poll workers, and the state having to train us in order to train our poll workers the new curriculum. That's why I had requested increases in regards to travel related costs and mileage. This year we exceeded the mileage in regards to the $1,000 just between traveling, picking up ballots, back and forth to trainings and conferences, and then the main topic of the temporary employee costs that I have broken down in the letter as well.
So it looks like in your request, you didn't have a request for temporary employees, but in the executive budget, 75,000, is that correct?
I must have erred in doing that in the budget. I basically wanted everything to be kept the same as last year. Last year's number was 151,748. But we can knock that down a little bit if you choose to, but 75 is really too low. The past history for the elections costs have been starting in 2017. It was 58,000. 2019 was, sorry, that was 2017. 2018 was 90,000. 2019 was just about 80,000. 2020 was 93,000. 21 was 76. And 2022 was 156. 156,000, and last year was 115,000. It's very hard to budget for because we don't know how many elections we're going to have, but with the early voting and things like that, cost has, we're using the temporary workers more, so cost has gone up. I don't think next year will be as expensive as this year, but you never know.
So in 2023, what was the actual temporary?
$115,927.06.
And this year, currently, including our presidential primary, online training, in-person training from February, and what we've inputted for poll workers that are going to be working during the general election. This is excluding any call-outs. We're employing high school people from Amsterdam this year, and we just had poll workers visit nursing homes today, so excluding all of that, we are at $114,578.37. The presidential primary costs $50,161.62. So if you want to say that that's going to be a primary in June of next year, if that exists, and because we will not have a presidential primary next year, we want to use that $50,000-ish amount. If we were to have a primary, then we would be around still 114 to 120, depending on how much we're gonna have to pay our trainers for this new training program next year. And we have no details from the state if that's gonna be 1 day or 2 days. Right now, it's a 1 day training that's roughly around 2 hours long, and we pay them $30. If it's a 6 to 8 hour training, we can't pay them $30 for the whole day. So we'll either have to raise that depending on how long the curriculum will take. We have no direction from the state in regards to that at the moment.
Does the state set the pay rate?
We are not aware of that. I would assume not, but.
So then we could still pay them.
But then we'll definitely lose people. I don't think they're gonna come and sit here for 8 hours to get $30 for the day. But you never know.
We did give out a raise a couple years ago for the inspectors and the coordinators. The inspectors are $15 per hour and the coordinators are 18. And we gave $18 an hour to our regional techs too. So obviously down the road, that's gonna have to be increased again. It's because every county's struggling to get poll workers, so we have to make it more appealing to them. So, and it's a very long day, you know, they're coming in at 5 o'clock in the morning and they don't leave till 10 o'clock at night, so it's a very long day.
Why, I see that you guys didn't request anything there. You just spoke of history. I mean, I thought what you were saying was, you know, you overlooked it and you aimed a little too low at 75,000, given the history you were talking about. But how did we not even put a value in there if it's running, you know, on average 115,000 a year in a non-presidential year?
That was just an error on me,
An oversight. Okay.
sorry.
No, it's okay.
How many temporary employees are there?
136-ish at the moment.
And it's mandated by the state how many have to be at each polling place?
It needs to be a bipartisan team, so
Right.
at least 2 depending on the size of the poll site. So I mean, this year we're employing more people at larger locations, like United Methodist with Hageman, we had to close. So the entire town of Amsterdam is gonna be voting there. It's over 3,000 voters.
Okay.
We've had, in the past, the Attorney General get involved because there was extensive wait times there. So we've upped our poll workers there just to try to keep the flow going better.
Okay.
So you really need that line to be $1.15, right? 115? Yeah.
I would, yeah, I mean, at least I would, 120, I mean, we're gonna be close to 120 this year by the end of everything, but.
Okay.
You're going to be at close to 120?
I would assume just between the high school students that we have to put on our books and what they're gonna be, you know,
For the total year.
yes.
In a presidential election year.
So then at 50,000 less than 100, so the 75 should be fine then.
Well, we've heard rumor between both the Republican and Democrat side that there will, I will say 75% possibly be a primary next year, so we wanna have money in the budget for that. I mean, if we don't, we'll have to come back, put in a resolution to get more money, but
Primary for what? Exec?
I'm unaware.
Or just primaries, period?
A primary, a countywide primary.
But not presidential?
No, it won't be a
Obviously.
presidential primary.
So what's changed in the last 2 years? Because the actual budget for temporary employees for '22 was 73,000. And the actual, which might be off, year for '23 was 11,500. So what is, have you added more temporary employees in the last 2 years?
Well, then now there's 11 days of voting or 10, so there's, we have to staff those
Early
places.
voting?
Yes.
Okay.
We did raise the rates too, we do bring a few poll workers in to help with testing the voting machines and things like that. So it adds up after a while.
So where in your proposed budget or the executive budget would you like us to pull from your other lines to give you that?
I offered my increase of salary allotted monies, because the budget last year that was submitted was this exact number, which was based off of my predecessor's amount of money that he was making. So that gap was only a $4,000 difference. That for me is a $12,000 difference. So I had put that on the table. And then obviously with the other two, with the travel and the mileage just being increased by 1,000, but for the letter that I had drafted, the total difference of what the budget that was presented to you was and what I requested was a 69,000 and change difference. But if no one's comfortable with a specific amount and we wanna do something around like 130-ish for the temporary employees, that would obviously be a bigger difference than 69,000, it'd be less.
And the computer software, that's a locked-in contract.
Correct.
You know, for the mileage, I can transfer money, if there's a line that has extra money in it. This year, the conference was away in Sleepy Hollow, so the mileage was quite a bit, so, you know, we can work with you folks if you know, like I said, if you wanna, if you're happy with, or, you're happy with 0, but if we can do like 120, that would be good.
If we increase the payroll or the temporary, is there an offset revenue or no?
We get reimbursed back from the city and the towns, but that is months after we give our poll workers their paychecks.
So how much is that? It's an equal,
Yes,
Mhm.
that's a very good point.
so then we would just increase the revenue and increase the,
Yeah.
so it isn't a.
I believe the revenue is okay the way I had it, I just forgot to put the
Would you mind talking with the treasurer and the executive and then just sending out an email with clarification on that?
Okay.
Because if it's just, we increase revenue, we increase
Yes, that's a-
appropriation, it's a net nothing.
Right.
We
We-
don't have to worry, because we're already at the tax cap.
Right.
So any more we add into this thing,
Well, just to make it clear, we charge back all the municipalities for the elections, so that's including people, any other expenses that we have to for, you know, the software, the voting machines, things like that, so, you will be getting that money back.
which would.
It lags, but it's in the same fiscal year, right?
Correct.
Right,
Yeah.
so it would have to be in the budget. So
Yeah.
if you guys could get together, get some clarification on that, if it does end up being just increased revenue, then it's just.
Well, are you saying you think you've already put the revenue in for it, but just didn't put the
Correct.
appropriation in, so we won't
Correct.
have to raise
Right.
revenue?
I'm basically going by,
Then we have to
Yeah.
find the money someplace.
Right.
Because we're at the tax cap.
Well, I'm just,
I will say that if you're talking about, you know, the reimbursement and that, if we were to have an April or, you know, a primary in June, normally, sometimes those town or city checks do come in for that specific election, and then we'll have the or the general election primary in November, and then those checks will come in after. So they do counteract themselves.
Any other questions?
and just one point, we have no increases in our budget. So we were just basically going off the same as this year. Okay? Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Veterans and Youth. Page
Page
32.
32. Follow the bouncing ball. All right. Floor's yours.
Don't pick on the youth and veterans, okay?
You don't pick on anybody.
I'm Brenda Radley, Executive Director of Youth and Veteran Services, and I also oversee the county mail service. A little bit about the department. On the youth side, I seek funding from the state to help support any of our youth programs that want to apply for the funding. We've had some significant increase in the funding over the past 2 years or so, with the addition of the sports grant funding that the state is giving us now to help support any youth sports programs. We also do the County Youth Day event in July. I'm planning to continue that, if you're willing to continue that.
And it'd be great to have more legislators involved.
We need a lot of volunteers, so, yeah. So, and then on the veteran side of the department, the main thing that we do on the veteran side is apply for claims, disability and pension claims for our veterans. We've had an influx of claims over the past couple of years with the implementation of the PACT Act law that went into effect in 2022. We also have our transportation service that still runs Monday through Friday, takes our veterans that are in need of rides to the Albany VA and 1 day a week to the Fonda VA clinic. We also contract with Fulton County and help support them in getting their veterans to their VA appointments as well. I try to do a program to kind of get our youth and our veterans together. I'm still planning to continue with the Youth Serving Veterans Spring Cleanup. It's where we seek youth groups throughout the county and they do yard work for our veterans that need help with that. Kind of makes a nice connection with our youth and our veterans. We have 2 full-time employees in the department, one being myself, the other being Mark Kaufman for the mail. And we have 5 part-time motor vehicle operators that run the transportation service. I have 2 part-time clerical staff and a part-time veteran service officer.
Any questions? I guess let's steal a line from the legislator, Bob, for
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
On both ends of the spectrum.
Good.
You're good?
All right, thank you.
Probation.
Good evening, everybody.
38.
I'm not Lucia Sitters.
Page 38.
Floor's yours.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Eric Gerard. I'm the Director of Probation in Montgomery County. Just an overview if anybody had any questions as to what we do. For folks that are justice involved, whether they're juveniles or adults, we provide services to the courts in the form of pre-trial. Somebody accused of a crime that would normally have gone, to jail and prior to bail reform. A lot of courts are now placing these individuals on pretrial release. These are legally innocent people who are have to call in and provided some resources to help them get to court, to appear in court, and seen quite an increase in those numbers. The new phenomenon that we're experiencing is our family court. We also service our family court with our juveniles. They are also utilizing pretrial release for juveniles, which is called something different. Of course, in the family court system, everything is the same, but it's different. Predispositional supervision, we're seeing an increase in those folks. Same concept. The state has, the past couple of years, has awarded counties a grant, and I don't believe in last year's budget I had put in for it because we weren't familiar with this grant. It was just money that showed up. But in speaking with our contact at the Division of Criminal Justice Services, this is something that we are expecting on a yearly basis at this point. I did receive in July an award notice. I don't know if that's come to us yet, in the amount of $134,000.13. That's to be utilized for our pretrial services, which could be used to offset salaries, equipment, things that, and folks that are involved in our pretrial services program. So we also, part of in the same area is community service. Folks that are convicted of a crime, and instead of utilizing our jails to house these folks, the court has the discretion to alternatively sentence them to conduct community service. We do have staff in my department who coordinate sites for these folks to go to. An individual that actually takes a work crew out into the community, picks up trash, works at the soup kitchen, things of that nature. And then, of course, what most people know of probation are juvenile and adults that are placed under supervision instead of going to jail. I have a staff that supervise these folks and ensure that they comply with the terms and conditions set forth by the court. Those that aren't meeting those expectations, they have to return to court to answer as to why they can't comply with those conditions. My staff are continuously in court, in our local justice courts, our county courts, city courts, and as I mentioned, family court, to help guide, the district attorney's office, the courts, the attorneys, and help come up with a resolution for these individuals. We also prepare reports for the courts prior to sentencing, pre-sentence investigations, which are very time-consuming, very comprehensive glimpse at an individual, what they did, where they come from, and an assessment that we conduct as to what type of recommendation we would make, whether the person should be incarcerated to hold them accountable, if they're placed on supervision, or receive a conditional discharge or community service. Trying to think, we do have a number of high-risk offenders that we do supervise in the community. Those that have committed offenses against children, sex offenders. We also have DWI offenders, domestic violence offenders. We connect these folks with resources. We work with victims to refer them to the appropriate, treatment programs. We obviously we refer our clients to treatment programs. We just had a drug court graduation today, where we graduated 8 folks who have completed our drug court program. That hopefully will have a life changing experience during their drug court program, and lead functional, stable lives within our community. And I think that's probably not even scratching the surface of everything we do, but for my time permitted today, that's it in a nutshell.
What happened with the revenue in the line for alternative to incarceration?
So that, I don't know. That's something that we used to get, and I think it was $5,000 for that. as well as 5,000. And I don't know what happened with that, Mr. Hedwell.
Because it's at 246,000 for the 1 year. It's
What's
on the sheet that we have, this is actually budgeted 1 year was listed at $246,056, or
Oh,
$57.
I was not,
That was a 2023 budget, and then for the 24 budget was 21,414.
I think, Mr. Hedwell, that was the money that we received from the pretrial grant. That was unexpected that year for 2023. That came in after we did our budget. So in the 2024 budget, what I did, for the 2024 budget, last year that I did for this year, I did not include that because I was not aware, I thought that was gonna be a one-time, here you go, happy birthday, whatever you wanna say. But then in July of in July 1st, 2024, I received another notification that we're gonna be receiving another $134,000. So I didn't budget for that, because I wasn't sure where that was going. And I believe that might actually have, if you can see, there's an increase in the probation services, to $331,000 as opposed to the $206,000. I think that's where we're putting that money now. That was in that 2023 line item.
And you don't have any idea if it's coming this year or not?
I do know, and I did receive that notification. That's the $134,013 that we are expecting to get it again next year for the following year, fiscal year. That's what I've been told, but we'll see. But I know we are getting that. I did get that grant award notice.
Okay.
Your computer software total has doubled.
Yes, that is correct. I was here a few months ago for a resolution. Our case management system, it's called Caseload Explorer, that the state mandates us to use, requires us to pay the vendor, I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $8,000 or $9,000 a year, which we've been paying since, I think, 2009 or so, when we adopted this program. I don't want to say we were forced to, take on this. However, our local IT department, data, was hosting this software on a local server, thereby alleviating the county a cost of $11,000 per year. It's changed, but that's what it is today. Which was great until that server crashed in March and we lost all our data, completely wiped everything out. We had to work a lot of overtime luckily we have a lot of paper that we were able to recreate these cases, remove cases. It was an extreme undertaking, but it also illustrated that our IT and our data department concedes that they can no longer handle how this program, this monitor, I'm sorry, I keep calling it monitoring, this case management system has grown over the years. So we contracted with the same company to have them host it on the cloud.
Okay.
So now, if our data gets wiped out, we can hold them liable. So that accounts for that increase.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Is that, I don't know yet.
I thought you already knew it.
Page 21.
I should have two. Legislator Kelly, where do you want to start?
Page 21.
Page. Is that public health or mental health?
Public health, yes.
I was gonna start with mental health and do the easy stuff first, but apparently we're starting on page 21. So, I
think you all know me, Sarah Barenko, the Director of the Public Health and Mental Health Department. Thank you. With me this evening is Connie Kuchar, our Director of Finance, who has worked diligently to put a tight budget together based on our totals and our numbers. When you're looking at our budget this year, you're going to see a few changes. When we look at our payroll, you'll notice that our payroll for public health has gone down over $40,000 due to eliminating a senior account clerk typist position, plus fringe. Our proposal is to take those duties of that position and allocate them to a senior account clerk typist and increase that to a principal to adjust for some of those increased duties. That's an adjustment of about $3,000. And then our principal account clerk typist that we currently have, adjusting that to a fiscal technician at a cost of about $5,000. Both of these folks who are doing this work have been longtime employees of the county and have been doing this work for the past year without compensation. And so in having conversations with personnel, it was noted that we needed to either adjust titles in some way or fill the position. Connie and I thought it was a better fiscal decision to eliminate the position completely in order to save the county that $40,000 plus the fringe, the salary, the benefits, the pension, and so on. So you'll notice that our overall payroll has gone down from $768,000 roughly to $722,000 roughly. When we are looking further into the budget, you always ask me about our children with disabilities services, and I always tell you it's a mandated program. And if you choose to cut the program, please note that I will be coming back to you, as I will be in December, asking you for about $200,000. Last year, the county executive cut my budget $100,000, and then you all cut it another $100,000, and we are on track this year to spend about $4.2 million. So we are going to be at a huge loss there. And also, just to give you some numbers, we have had an increase in the children we are serving. So we had at one point one child getting one-to-one aid in a classroom, again, mandated service. We are now at 14 children receiving one-to-one aids in the classroom. So we went from a budget of $46,000 to $240,450. Again, mandatory services. We have no capacity to tell the school districts and children with disabilities that they don't deserve these services. We pay for them. We currently have, and it is only the end of October, 163 children enrolled in this program. That is not all of the children so far that we will have. We are probably looking at another 15 to 20 on top of that. We get a lot of late enrollments, children's birthdays. As you know, it's the 3 to 5 program. So children who are 1.5, 2 now, in the middle of a school year, because we run on a school year, not a fiscal January to December year, may turn 3 and go into the 3 to 5 preschool program, costing the county further dollars. Our transportation budget is what it is. We have to provide transportation to these children. We have one vendor, and I think you all know the increased costs of transportation, gas, transportation for children with disabilities and aides that need to be on that bus to ensure the well-being and safety of those children. Tuition, currently the rate is approximately $4,776 a month for one child to attend center-based services, and currently, as I said, we have 163 children receiving center-based services. So I'll cut right to the chase of the big dollars. The rest of it is grant money and funds that we receive via our state aid and grants that we accept annually for the public health of our residents in the county. And I'm sure you have lots of questions.
Sarah, it looks like you're at about 73% realized of your revenues. Do you expect that to play out fully for the rest of the year?
You want me to take that one?
Yes.
I will take that one. We have a new grant we got last year. It actually started end of 2022 infrastructure grant. They just approved my year 1 budget, which is from 23 to 24. That's going to be about $100,000. They just did a claim. I think it's 97 and change. I just got confirmation yesterday that has been approved. It's gone through. We'll be getting that soon. That's 2023 revenue that I'm still waiting on. 2024 is going to be about $125,000. I can't get them to reimburse me for that year until they do 2023. So that's $125 we're missing. The state just put a hold on all Medicaid claims. There is something wrong with the eMedNy system. We haven't been told what it is, but they have put a moratorium on any Medicaid claims, so I can't submit any, which means I can't get any money back under that line. That's gonna be a substantial amount. As well as AVLs, we can't submit them and get the money back until we've paid the bills. This time of year, because it's a new school year just started in September, like Sarah said, we have children that are going and but we don't have the paperwork yet. We haven't paid the bills, and until we pay the bills, we can't get the money back. So I do foresee that we are going to get more revenue. I will say our state aid is going to be less than we expected. We're not going to hit the 577.5 because I don't have the expenses to get reimbursed because we have been so short-staffed this year. Everything we do public health, it's a pay for it, get it back. If I don't have the staff in those positions that we're paying, I don't get that money back. So we're definitely going to be lower. That line's going to be less than what we expected it to be because, like I said, we have been running on a skeleton crew, as I'm sure a lot of you know. We've just hired 3 staff within the last, I would say, month and a half, and 2 more starting. So we don't get back what we haven't spent. So on the other end, my payroll is going to be a lot less than I expected it to be by the end of this year.
Yeah, it's like 1.2 million you're still underutilized.
You know, that's at the end of September,
Right.
so it's 3/4 of the way through.
Right,
so
that's why
it's
I'm
gonna be-
73% it says, so that's why I'm assuming that it'll continue to fill in for the
I
rest
can
of the
say though, we have had some incredible staff this year who are very diligent about getting insurance paperwork signed. They chase families down to get those applications signed. So we have seen a huge increase in our reimbursables for insurance for our children accessing services due to having staff that have the ability to ask families and work with families to fill out the applications for reimbursement and the signatory pages.
Yeah, Medicaid, I would say we're running about 75% of all of our children that are in EI and 3 to 5 are Medicaid reimbursable. However, we only get reimbursed 100% of the related services they receive while they're in a center. And then the rest of, like that 5,000 kind of she's saying we pay per child per month, we might get reimbursed 750 of that from the related services. Then we get 59.5% back for the rest of the money. So like Martin made a very good point that I can't get the revenue back until I've paid the bills. So we are, I think, kind of running probably where we would expect to. We have a lot of revenue that goes into fiscal closing because of the way our operates. Like I said, we
On a
usually
school
have,
year.
we're probably one of the biggest departments that has the revenue that goes into fiscal closing because everything happens at the end of the year. Everything's done quarterly. All the grants and the state aid, I do them quarterly. They're not done monthly. So we are always on a 3-month lag for our revenue. And then eMedNy, like I said, Medicaid, the state has given us no estimate whatsoever when they feel this system is going to be back up and running, and we are just told to hold all of our Medicaid claims until they tell us otherwise. I would assume that's going to be affecting DSS as well, but I would let them speak to that.
Any other questions?
I just,
On the mental health, Sarah, the
We
administration.
haven't gotten to there yet.
We're still on page 21, Legislator Headwell, please, please.
We haven't gotten to mental health.
Okay.
We treat them as 2 completely separate. I know we're like a merged department, but they're 2 completely separate budgets.
Any
And I
questions?
don't want to upset Legislator Kelly by jumping from page 21 this evening.
That's correct.
wow.
One question I do have about a contract, and it did come up at last month's meeting in regards to the website.
Yes,
What are we paying for that contract?
it's $20,000, but it comes out of our infrastructure grant money.
Okay. And it's a yearly?
It will be ending probably March, April of 25.
So that's when the contract renews, or is it renewed?
The contract will end December of 31. I'm going to start doing it in 3-month increments, just because we are at a place now where internally we are getting the training needed to actually operate that. So that is a huge undertaking. So we will be able to maintain and operate all of our internal data, all of our internal websites, updating all of our calendars, all of our events. Actually, Jennifer and I were just sitting today and updating our website so that it can go right to the calendar for the public to access.
I just have a quick question. One of your big line items in every department is special costs.
Yes. So Connie had the wherewithal a few years ago to take all of our medical supplies, all of our medical waste, all of our fees for services that we have, and instead of breaking them out line by line, we lump them now as special costs because it's a special cost to that grant. In New York State, when we voucher for that grant, they don't care that it was $27 worth of Band-Aids. They want it as a special cost, a medical supply.
They care PS and NPS is the way they do it, personal services, non-personal services. So the fact that we used to have like 20 lines in each grant, and if I put $500 under mileage and then I needed $20 to buy office supplies, I'd have to do a transfer. So I spoke to Sean, between him and I, we came up with the idea of, why don't we just simplify this, I'll call all that money special costs, and then I could just spend it as I need it, and I don't have to do a budget transfer every time I'm doing
Thank you.
something.
Any other questions for public health? Okay, now on to mental health.
What page are we on, Legislator Kelly?
We are on
26. You can't see it without my glasses.
We're getting there.
So for mental health this year, our budget is pretty stable. It's income that comes in, we pay it out, pass-through dollars that go to OASIS and OMH licensed facilities. You will see our opiate settlement funds. We had a huge decrease in opiate settlement funds. I think it's interesting. The first couple of years we were getting $300,000, $200,000. This year we're only getting about $96,000. And so when we look at these settlement funds being allocated over the next 16 years, I'm guessing probably by year 7, 8 we'll be getting, $10. Because this is just such a decrease in what we were seeing there. As you go down, it's pretty self-explanatory. Everybody always wants to know about our court-related expenses. I've been working diligently this year with the DA's office. District Attorney Diamond and ADA Pearson have been absolutely wonderful in working with me on finding alternatives to incarcerating 730s, which are individuals who have been deemed incompetent to stand trial, to find alternate placement for them other than being in a confinement or facility, which has saved the county money. But again, it's an unfunded mandate. Connie and I have been working diligently with NISAC to draft resolutions to have the state come up with alternatives for lengths of stay. So in conversations I've had with folks at OMH, I will often say to them, if you can't restore somebody in 3 months, then they're probably not restorable. If somebody has been in a facility for 3 months and they are just not restored back to competency, chances are that there's a cognitive or a developmental delay and they're not going to be able to ever understand their charges. And I would think ADA Pearson would agree with that on some of the cases we've worked on. So that has helped us in that area, that we have such a great relationship with our DA's office, but it is still an unfunded mandate. We have unfortunately lost the fight with 3 inmates this season. Like it is baseball season, but in Survivor, yes. This year we have had 3 inmates, which we have not been able to find alternatives for. So it is a cost, but really it's one of the only items in our budget that is a county-driven cost. The rest of this is really pass-through dollars in and out.
Legislator Hepburn, you had a question from
Now that we're on page 26, yes.
Yes, it was that there is the mental health program coordinator, a new position.
So it had to be reallocated. So when I worked with the personnel officer in looking at the duties of that position, it was not allocated appropriately to the right title and grade based on the duties of the position. So it had to go to a different grade.
It used to be the education coordinator.
Right, and the person in that position is not doing education. They're doing more therapy-based services, and it really is a higher level and higher education requirement for the work that is expected from that individual. But we do get the federal sharing dollars. So we get federal cost sharing dollars, and we get random timestamp study, which is in public health world, they call it performance incentives. In the mental health world, they call it random timestamp studies. So you complete these tasks and they give you money. So the money from that always goes into salaries or training. It doesn't go into...
It still looks like on the books, like it's a $22,000 increase over 2 years.
So,
I think in the 23 budget, it's because that was,
was a partial
it was
year.
a partial year. So
Okay.
it was implemented, that person started in September, with the school year of 2023.
Right.
So the salary in 2024 would have been 50,699. But we did get $13,000 from, federal cost share dollars last year.
We also get LGU admin money from both Oasis and OMH, and that goes to salaries.
Are you gonna bring up the revenue?
Yeah, as of the end of last month, you're at 7% of.
How much?
7%.
That's
of
not
your-
accurate. I don't know why, but the treasurer doesn't realize it. Where it says, like where it actually shows what we've received, that's not accurate at all. I keep track of what we received and the receipts we get. I think the only thing he's actually recognized is the opioid settlement money. For some reason, my other two lines for Oasis and OMH, he doesn't show that revenue coming in.
We
And I
get a
don't know why.
receipt every quarter of how much
Right.
they've sent us. It actually, I believe, goes to the county attorney as well. So it goes to the county attorney, the county treasurer, Connie, and myself, and we get a form that I have to sign off on saying that I recognize that we're getting this 87,000. It's like 87,000 a quarter from Oasis, and it's about 200 and something a quarter from OMH.
Sometimes it's
So
more.
where do you
And
think,
sometimes it's more.
where do you think you're at this point?
I think we've gotten everything we're expecting to get, minus any closebacks they took, which I'll explain. OMH just closed out, God, I want to say maybe 2018 or 19. So when they do a closeout, they send it to me. I go to the providers and I say, you didn't spend everything you were supposed to. OMH and Oasis, we advance money to the providers. Then they fill out a CFR. Then the respective agencies review them at their leisure, and then come set to give me a closeout, and then I go and I take the money back from them. OMH is only up to 18. Oasis just finished 2020-21. They did a 2-year closeout because of COVID. So I took $90-some thousand back from one provider because they underspent. We're arguing over $5,000 with another provider. She wants to update her CFR, and then the other provider just updated their CFR as well, and they owe us back, I think, $24,000 or $34,000, which they've agreed to cut us a check for. So it's hard for me to say, like I said. So I got everything except for $100 and whatever thousand that they're taking back for those 2 years. But they're taking out of this year something that happened 3 years ago.
And we do get our money quarterly for Oasis and OMH.
Right.
It's part of our state contract with them, because if we don't get the money from Oasis or OMH, then we cannot pay our provider. I don't front providers county dollars without receiving the money from the state first.
Yeah, and I just don't know why Sean doesn't recognize it in that line. He never has. I've noticed that. It just doesn't get done. I don't know why. But he does send me the receipts, and we are on par to get with that. We've gotten pretty much everything we're going to get this year, honestly.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I wish he was here to ask him that, because I wondered myself why he doesn't recognize it.
Yeah, when you're showing your 7%.
I just feel it's not my place to question him, but he doesn't. They just don't recognize it. But they do send me the receipts, and I keep track of what I've got. So.
Could you check with executive, could you check with Sean on that? Just curious.
Yeah, probably the only thing he's showing that we got was the opioid money, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, yep, I don't know why he does it that way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are we done on page 26?
I think that's all of our pages then. That's all of our pages.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Christina Pearson, the First Assistant District Attorney, and I'll be here representing the District Attorney's Office. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to you tonight. So the District Attorney, the DA's office is represented by our District Attorney, currently Lorraine Diamond, as well as 8 full-time attorneys. We have 4 clerical staff, support staff, a confidential secretary, a full-time investigator, and a part-time investigator. The attorneys were tasked with prosecuting the felonies and misdemeanors within the county, as well as infractions, violations, traffic tickets. We also handle appeals. We've submitted our packet, and I just wanted to highlight, just go over what we've requested as an increase in the budget of approximately $164,000. We believe that this request is necessary to keep up with the demands of Discovery. To remain competitive, we need to secure and maintain qualified attorneys to represent the people of this county. We're requesting an increase in the base salary of our ADAs to $116,142. And again, necessary to remain competitive with Fulton County, just right up the hill. Their ADAs are making that as their base salary. We're requesting an increase for the bureau chief to $123,842, as well as an increase of the first assistant position to $138,455. And that salary again, those salaries again match what the salary base is for comparative for Fulton County. I can tell you right now that we have an open ADA position. It's been open since August 2nd. Haven't been able to fill that position. So we need a competitive salary to entice attorneys to come in and stay here. I can tell you that our average caseload for our ADAs are approximately 260 felony and misdemeanor cases per ADA, and that's not including approximately 100 traffic cases per ADA. We recently lost an ADA to a neighboring county, in part because of the caseload. We found out that the county that the ADA went to had an average caseload of 50 felonies, or if they were doing misdemeanors, 75 misdemeanors. So it's a significant less caseload. Saratoga. And again, we are requesting those increases. We are additionally requesting a paralegal position, and that salary has a base of $60,767. Now, Discovery demands continue to have us on strict deadlines. We really need that paralegal to assist in turning over Discovery, drafting motions, responses, reviewing hours and hours of body cam video, to ensure that we properly submitted 71030 notices. And what that means is a defendant makes a statement or admission of guilt, anything that we may want to use in trial against them, but we only have 15 days from the date of arraignment to give notice. If we don't give that notice, then we're precluded from using those statements against him at trial. So if you can imagine 4 officers, 5 officers showing up to each arrest, we have to review hours, multiple hours of body cam to make sure we catch the statements and put them in that notice. And that's just an insane amount of work. I can tell you that Lorraine and I are working at night at no cost to the county, but turning over Discovery, making sure that the ADAs are turning over Discovery, and just keeping up, and it's insurmountable. So a paralegal is definitely imperative. It's a position that we really need. Let's see here. I believe that Lorraine did share a comparative analysis chart with all of you earlier. If I can just refer to that. If you compare the budgets of prosecution versus criminal defense within Montgomery County, you can see it's significantly disproportionate. And I know you guys have all heard from Lorraine these past 4 years that we need to balance the scales of justice. I mean, just to make it absolutely clear that we don't begrudge the funds directed to defense. Every defendant is entitled to a defense, and that's not what we are saying at all, that money should not be directed there. But what we want to make clear and hopefully convey is that when you accept grant money to fund defense budget, you have to balance the scales and know that you're going to have to allocate some money to the prosecution of those cases. You know, the percentage, if you look at the past 4 years, I mean, we were doing okay in 23. It was 41% if we're looking at the percentages between prosecution and defense. 41% of the total budget was allocated to the district attorney's office, 59 to defense. That was 2023. 2024, it was 40 and 60. And okay, it's not quite even, but if you're looking at the request and what the executive has proposed, we are down to 32% for prosecution and 68% for defense. It's trending down. So let's see here. So as to what the proposal, let's see here. What's been proposed by the executive is that we did not receive what we had requested as far as a paralegal position. And so that was $60,767 there. They decreased the proposed base salary of the ADA positions, a total reduction of $10,896. Now, we did request for the first assistant position to be increased to $138,455. And if you look at the 2025 proposed executive, it's $138,955. So you gave us about $500 more there. So we still only want the $38,455. I think, and that as a base, understanding that next year my position will be open, so I'm moving up. So we will request that the $138,455 remain the same. Okay. So with me moving up, it'll be aligned with no longevity. Let's see here. So the bureau chief position, there is a deficit of $6,656, but I believe there was discussions that maybe there was we believe a clerical error, because what was proposed given as an increase was a $5 raise in that position. And if you look at the increase for the ADAs that was given, it was about $5,000. So I think there was a clerical error there. So total denial of approximately $77,819. I know that on this comparative analysis worksheet that Lorraine had provided, it says amount DA denied, $74,196. Well, again, we went over those numbers and realized that we believe, and we'll have to go over with personnel, that the discrepancy, there is some discrepancy with longevity. So the number is more like $77,819. So again, that is what we are requesting. We're not requesting any increase in any other line. I believe, that's it.
Was your department part of the survey study that we did? Because it looks like the percentages that from last year to this year are about 3% what the executive put in this budget. And I know that this is the second phase of the 3%.
The survey study, I'm sure every department had a correct survey study.
Right, because we did a second phase, is that what this budget includes, is the second phase of the 3%? It's more than 30%. What they're requesting?
Oh, what we are, yes.
What the department requested, yes, but it's about 3% most of the lines. From what?
The increase from last year, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, we've had, like I said, the ADA position open since August. And we appear in all the local town and village courts. We have county court, Supreme Court, family court, youth part, drug court. We need that position filled, and we can't do that if we don't have a competitive salary. Up the hill in Fulton County, we're requesting what they're making. And I believe that it is the position of the DA that we need to remain competitive, and we also need to keep these people because, like I said, we lost 2 ADAs. One went to Saratoga, and she has less of a caseload, and making actually additionally, in addition to her salary, has additional benefits that Saratoga. And other counties have additional benefits, cars. They get reimbursement for appearing and being on call. I think centralized arraignments, they get additional money for being on call for those. We don't have centralized arraignment in our county, so, and we don't have to appear at our arraignments, so that's not taken into consideration. So yeah, we are requesting more, but if we can't fill the position, then it's gonna be tough.
I understand what you're saying in regards to the salaries and stuff, and I just really wish that the salaries were being looked at a totally a different time. I wish there was a salary schedules in place where they knew where they could increase each year, like longevity, what the increases were than just being put in the budget each year. I mean, there should be a 3-year contract or a 4-year contract or a 2-year contract, knowing what they were, because, just increasing, look at some of these increases that we've had over the last couple of years they've grown a lot. I mean, and yes, I understand other counties, but I think it's one of those things where other units negotiate their contracts with them, and it doesn't come to the budget time where we're doing this. But I also agree that we need to get even with the other counties and do stuff like that. But we're also trying to keep taxes down and do what we're supposed to do too. So I mean, it's a double-edged sword.
Any other questions or comments?
No? Okay,
Please pass along well wishes to Lorraine.
I will. Thank you.
Good job.
You have 30 seconds.
Wait, I need 20 minutes to go over the budget.
You don't wanna hear Department of Law?
Yeah. Old news.
Archie, law and order, law enforcement?
Can you let the man go?
I thought he was your, straw man.
You guys don't want me to relocate, do you?
Yes, I do.
Do you really?
Is the camera on?
So, they say save the best for last, and I was really honored and excited till I realized you thought that Department of Law was the conflict defender.
I don't know what it was. Somebody else thought it was.
I did not give it a total line through, it was just a little check, like a question mark. So, here I am.
What page? What
Page 9. Eight. Page 8. My budget is pretty straightforward, and
I didn't give you the plan.
Which line are we slashing?
She already,
1420.00.1110.
she already slashed all the revenue, so.
Yeah,
actually, I have some good news
you
tonight.
have the floor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Basically, if you look at my request, my department request is the same as the DA. I'm just asking, you're increasing public defenders, you're increasing DAs. Please bring the county attorneys to the same. We have the same recruitment issues, the same problems. It is real. The recruitment issues are real. So that is what I am asking there. You see I have a stipend for a secretary. There's someone who's been acting as my secretary for almost 10 years now without asking for a cent. As my work increases, her work has increased, and I've started to feel really guilty about it. So I put in a request for a stipend.
Is that a current county employee?
It is a current employee. And I will remind you that before I started, about almost 10 years ago now, there was a regular stipend for a secretary in the county attorney's budget. When I started, I took it completely out. I said, I don't need a secretary, I don't need anything. I'm gonna do everything myself. And that worked really well, except it doesn't always work well. And when you're a team, you have people who stand up, pitch in, and don't complain, and just do the job. And sometimes the good people get taken advantage of. And I feel like this person, she does more work than that, but I also work for you guys, and I try to be conservative. The good news is, that sums up my request. The good news is this. I was looking at my budget again, and I realized that it doesn't reflect, if you look at miscellaneous supporting services, which went up to $10,000, it doesn't reflect the revenue that comes in from DSS to offset that. So I actually have a $5,000 revenue increase that I can submit for you guys to reflect that. And I also realized that the work in support court that Bill Warman does is not reflected. So I actually have an additional revenue of $16,000 that I can submit. So that's a it'll be $21,000 total as revenue coming from my department, which is something. And that should more accurately reflect what's going on there.
What's the increase in professional services?
I've never asked for outside counsel fees ever. I think that I should have it, so I don't have to come to you every time that there's a question or an emergency. I feel
Like there was a
that's-
couple of months ago.
Yeah, I feel like I just need to have, I need to have that for my own
Sure.
piece of.
Can you find $479,000 more, please?
Revenue?
For what? Oh, for the tax and balance of budget?
Yeah.
Well, look, I'm doing what I can.
You just spent it.
You did 21,000.
You gave us 21, but you're spending it.
Well,
Not entirely, not entirely. They increase the revenue, we don't
Give her 10 more minutes.
Well, okay, you guys drive a hard bargain, but here's my final offer.
Okay.
By the way, I do want to just mention that 2 attorneys are not actually reflected in my budget. They're in DSS, so please be mindful of them. I don't want them to get forgotten, and all of a sudden we have DSS attorneys with who now have the worst salaries, and they're the hardest to keep. Please just keep them in mind when you're doing your budget adjustments, because there are two that are not reflected here, and 68% of their salary is offset by revenue. So any increase that goes to them, you can offset it by revenue. And I am willing to give up my furniture line for $1,000 if, to help make this tight budget year easier. I have spoken to my assistant. He is willing to continue working on a plastic table, and but we would like to retain employees. So that's me. I'm sure you have questions.
Any questions?
And if not, thank you for your time.
I do have a question since we thought it was conflict of interest.
Oh.
You can say my name.
I won't throw you completely under the bus. I do have a question in that line item, in that budget about the professional services.
What page?
Yeah. See, aren't you glad I brought that to your attention?
Yes, and actually, that's a great point, and that's an excellent point, and that's part of the problem. I know not everyone agrees with this, but what happened last year in the fall, after the salary study, was the 18B rates went up and pretty much doubled to, I think it's $145 an hour. What that does is now we have a huge increase on what we're paying the conflict defender outside counsel to cover the cases, and what that also has done is made significantly increased the salary for 18B counsel. If you the rough calculation, is it comes out to something like working 20 hours a week at the new rate. The 18B counsel makes like $150,000 for 20 hours a week. And that is driving some of these issues with attorneys, because it's increasing. When you're increasing that, it's just increasing the salary pool. And that's why you're seeing some issues with the DA. That's why you're seeing issues with the public defender. That's why you're seeing issues with civil. It just is.
Well, being that this is state driven, are they throwing more money behind it?
They're not. And they're not. What they did is they funded, there was a lawsuit years ago, we've heard about it from Bill Marticello, Pearl Herring, that required indigent defense to go up. As part of that, the state did throw in as a grant and started funding. So now you see the public defender's office start to get these additional funds coming in. That same grant is what funded our conflict defender's office too. But what that grant is not covering is this additional 18B cost. So that's why you're seeing, we get some of it, but not most of it, because that's the local share.
So is that capped, that indigent service revenue, is that capped at the 338?
That comes from a grant, and that's, yeah. So it's we get that. I'm not involved with that grant process, but the grant is what it is.
So who's involved in that grant since?
The conflict defender is supposed to be submitting their budget and getting reimbursements and having discussions with the state. I know when we got this office off the ground, I was involved in some of those discussions and some of those initial things to help get the department set up. As you recall, we had a charter change and everything else. And so budgeting is heavily reliant on what the conflict defender conveys. Do I get a bonus point for presenting for two departments?
Megan, now the public defender's office, there's a lot of state aid money coming through that office, correct?
Public defender has a lot of grants, yes.
So when the district attorney's talking about their money, they have hardly any state aid money coming in, where the DA, where they were doing the comparison.
Yeah, DA doesn't.
The DA is pretty much 100% funded, or close to being 100% funded by the county, where the public defender's office is heavily funded by the state of New York.
Right, and what happens to that is when you have, a lot of times what happens with the ILS grants is they come in and they say, oh, we want your caseloads to go down, we want the defense, the public defense to be better. So you have public defender caseloads going down, and then I think that's what the DA meant by the balance isn't there, because when it goes down for the defense side, now you have the prosecutor, which does carry a heavier burden in court, because they have to prove.
Innocent until proven.
Yes, they have to prove the case, and it is a lot more. And when you have a heavier caseload, you are just in more places at once. You have a lot more time to put up.
But when it happens, I mean, you look at these numbers and it makes it look like we're not being fair to
Oh.
both, but it's nothing to do really with us. It's the state of New York who's giving
The grant money.
they're
Yeah,
giving tons of money to the defense.
right,
And they're leaving us
right.
as county as hanging and.
To pay for our own prosecution.
Yeah, and,
And then pay for them when they go to our jail.
Mm-hmm, that too.
yeah, there's yeah,
No, I mean, but I think that's the biggest thing. It's not us
right,
that's doing this. It's the state that's doing it and making it look like
right.
we're the bad guys, because the state just says, oh, here, raise the salaries, and, there's a lawsuit, and these are making more, so we gotta pay them more, and, just to,
Yeah, and it trickles in through the year, so you guys we'll get the resolutions here that are like, oh, $300,000 grant. It's like, cool, no match, here's a grant, and at the end of the year, when you come to the budget, it's like, oh,
Yeah, you can see the huge disparity.
Any other questions for the Department of Law?
DOA.